Hello and welcome to our next session at Tamebay Live, a really exciting session with our presenting partner Pattern looking at the Middle East. Just to remind you, the Totem platform will be open all day and for an hour after the last presentation today. So take the time you can go and chat with colleagues. There's some networking tables you can sit at and video conference with friends. And also our presenting partners all have a showcase. So if you'd like to find out more about Pattern, who are presenting in this session, or any of our other presenting partners, go to the showcases where you'll find some content you can download and add to your delegate bag, some videos to watch. And most important of all, if you'd like to find out more about their services and what they can offer you, sign their guest book, or they will have colleagues available that you can talk to direct throughout the day, and get to know them and their services and see if they can help your business. As with all sessions, David, that's presenting now, has kindly agreed to take questions. So if you do have any questions at all for him, just beneath the screen, you'll see a little red box that says submit a question. And if you pop your question in there, it'll come through to me and I'll put the questions to David at the end of the session. So I'd like to introduce David, who, as I say, is from Pattern, and he works in the Middle East and North Africa division at Pattern. He's based in Dubai. He's got a ton of experience in creating seamless customer journeys on both online and offline touch points for consumers in the Middle East, and having worked for major retail players in the area. He prior to that, he's worked for companies like Mother Care, both in the Middle East and Russia, Amazon, Dixon's Carphone Warehouse. So David has a ton of experience. And without further ado, David, I'd like to welcome you to Tamebay Live.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Chris. Thanks for the introduction there. And hi, everyone. Looking forward to taking you through today's session with a focus on marketplaces in the Middle East. So let me start to go through. I'm not really going to introduce myself after that from Chris, but just a quick background. So I have been I've been working now with Pattern for a couple of years in the Middle East. We set up the business here, based in Dubai, and my background has always been in e-commerce, as Chris was saying, Amazon, Dixon's in the UK, where I was originally from, and I've been in the Middle East now, Kuwait and the UAE for about 9 years with various different businesses. So what will we cover in today's session? So as I said, so this is really around MENA, Middle East, North Africa, and kind of identifying what's the kind of the right model and a bit of insight onto the marketplaces within that. We'll go through best practice listings in the Middle East. There will be similarities to a lot of other markets here, but we've recently done a benchmarking exercise within the UAE and Saudi Arabia. So we're able to give you some kind of real life examples and statistics from that. We'll talk through marketing, different techniques, both on platform, off platform, what's unique for this region and how brands can kind of leverage that and take advantage. Grey market and fakes. I think most markets do experience this, but the Middle East do experience this in quite a high amount, and it's quite a key area. So we'll spend some time talking through that, a bit of insights, and then we'll finish off in terms of kind of the future marketplace growth opportunities in the Middle East and North Africa, and also just a bit of insight into the different models and which one could be right for your brand. Cool. So just taking a look at the Middle East and calling out some of the specific examples from marketplaces such as Amazon, which I'm sure everyone knows, and Noon, which is the local marketplace within the Middle East. So MENA, if we look at growth rates, so this is a report from Visa. We're actually waiting for their post-COVID report to come out, but so this was pre-COVID numbers, but as you can see, the MENA region, and maybe you can or can't see this, but their growth rates are tracking very high. Now they're coming from a lower base, but there is a lot of growth. And working in this region over the last 9 years, I would say that the last 1 to 2 years has been huge growth, not only COVID fueled, but the growth has been huge, both from a marketplace point of view, kind of leading the way, but also the retailers kind of adopting an omni-channel approach. Now, when we look at MENA, it's pretty vast. For today's session, I'm really going to focus in on the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and we'll touch on Egypt as well. Now, the UAE and Saudi Arabia most likely represent the biggest opportunities for brands internationally. The UAE kind of stands out because it's e-commerce is a lot more mature. It's very widely adopted. There's a lot of similar sort of shopping habits to Western markets. Internet penetration is strong. Population is pretty small, but it's a pretty good sort of foundation for entering within the market. Saudi Arabia is, another big opportunity, slightly more population than the UAE, population of around 34 million versus around 10 million within the UAE. Now, internet penetration is slightly lower, and there are some differences here, but that is seeing huge growth, a massive change in the demographics there, lots of cultural changes in terms of shopping behavior and adoption within online. And a lot of businesses within this region are focusing on Saudi. Egypt, another interesting market, a lot less mature, lower ASPs, lower spends, but there's a bigger population. There's a big opportunity potentially for certain brands to play within Egypt as well. But definitely UAE and Saudi Arabia are kind of key markets when looking within this region. And that's also where Amazon is present. So if we look at the pure players, Amazon being one of them, this is basically some research in terms of the split between kind of brick and mortar e-retailers or omni-channel, whatever you want to call them, versus online pure players. So that could be Amazon, etc., marketplace. Within the UAE and Saudi Arabia, it's pretty much led by these pure players. There is a big adoption around retailers moving into online, but ultimately that's where consumers are shopping. If we look at Amazon and Noon, so as I said, Amazon's pretty familiar. I'm sure you are with Amazon, but Noon is the kind of the local equivalent. It was created by Mohammed Al-Abbar, who is an Emirati. He heads up Emaar, which is the biggest property developer within the region. He built the Dubai Mall, the Burj Khalifa, and so on. A lot of financial backing, Saudi sovereign fund as well. They put about 50% of the original $1 billion into the investment, and they've picked up a lot of traction over the last couple of years. And as you can see here, it's pretty level pegging. Amazon's slightly ahead. It does benefit from a larger range and an easier seller platform, but definitely both of these marketplaces should be considered within the UAE and within Saudi Arabia, where they're both present. In terms of the splits, in terms of sales on marketplace, pretty similar here to a lot of other markets. Electronics leading the way, fashion, home, personal care. Some differences, but ultimately it's very, very similar to other markets. Quick one in terms of just to touch on kind of the purchasing drivers for why consumers are kind of shopping online. Price point is number one. Brand authenticity is really big here. I think this is the key call out on this slide. Trust for consumers here is a big impactor. There's a lot of fake products, as I said earlier on, and they really want to make sure that they're buying from the brand. It's authentic product, and they will pay a premium for that as well. Online within this region is quite interesting. Obviously, and most consumers do have their first purchase in physical store. It's definitely a brick and mortar world within the Middle East. It's part of the culture. But in terms of repeat purchase, there's a big swing in terms of those consumers actually coming back and buying online. So, if it was a completely new brand launch, it would kind of make sense to try and get some sort of physical store presence. You can still go with an online only approach, but definitely in terms of that repeat purchase, it's a big opportunity online. Very quickly, in terms of luxury, so luxury is well known here within the UAE and the GCC. It's high disposable income, and so luxury does perform really well. Luxury performs very well in terms of online marketplace. There's Unas, is an example. It's not multi-category like Amazon. It's very, very specific in terms of luxury. It covers fashion, it covers beauty, and they are actually performing very, very well. Cross-border, so cross-border within this region is huge. And that's partly because domestically there aren't a lot of manufacturers of products. There aren't a lot of domestic products. So everything is imported. And when it's imported largely by these big distributors, franchisees, there's a certain amount of those products that go into stores, and that's the range that they get, but it's not the full range. So consumers are looking for extended ranges and cheaper prices, and they're shopping cross-border. I think within the Middle East and North Africa, cross-border trade is bigger than domestic, and it's pretty much the only market, I think, in the next 2 years where cross-border is still bigger than domestic. So a quick snapshot on the UAE, just to kind of paint a picture on this, largely the most attractive market from an e-commerce point of view within the region. The shoppers are young, digital natives, very tech sort of savvy. Everyone's obviously smartphone glued to their smartphone. It's a really, really high consumer of the apps. So apps do perform a real key part in e-commerce sites' strategies here. Payments, it used to traditionally be a cash on delivery sort of market where consumers order the product and pay when it's delivered. That has now moved away within the UAE. Credit and debit cards and so on, and prepayment is highly adopted, including like Apple Pay, etc., and digital wallets. I'm just going to start to skip forward to ensure that we stay on time. So another key thing to call out within this region is from a government point of view, there has been quite a lot of investment around e-commerce. Some of it you could arguably say is a bit of buzz, but some of it is quite focused. And the UAE does want to position itself as a regional e-commerce hub within this region. I do think from a trade point of view, there does need to be some changes and easing of free trade within those countries, but ultimately that's the vision. This is an example of Dubai Commerce City, a recent setup, which is trying to be that kind of hub for the region. There will be a few of these coming up, and that could represent an opportunity for brands to enter the market that don't want to do a lot of the kind of pulling the different pieces into business setup together themselves. This could be an easy solution to enter within the market. So now we'll go on to some best practice examples and a bit of insight from our benchmarking report that we did within the UAE and Saudi Arabia, specifically on Amazon. So just on this, so we looked at 50 consumer brands being sold on Amazon within the region. We've pulled together a kind of a scorecard, and we picked 3 products from each of these brands. Typically, they're most viewed and best-selling products. And we went through that scorecard across the different various things, including reviews, content, imagery, etc. And we've given them some rankings, and we pulled that all together. It is available to download the full report. You can go onto pattern.com and download the full report. And this is specific within these 5 categories. So we looked at electronics, home and kitchen, fashion apparel, beauty, and the vitamin and supplements categories. Vitamin and supplements is a really interesting category. It's seeing massive growth along with beauty and home and kitchen. Electronics is obviously the largest, and then fashion and apparel is seeing growth as well, but it does have some challenges. These were basically the top 3 in each of the categories that we looked at. And I think the standout here is that, well done to these brands. But what we've noticed is that some of these brands, they're not actually doing this themselves. Some of this is organically, someone else is selling their product cross border. They don't even know about it, and their products are listed. So the scores are relatively low if we compare that to more mature markets like Europe or the US. There's definitely some improvements that could be done. So if we start to go through some of the benchmarks on this, so only 6% had product titles that were really optimized from an SEO perspective. And this just shows that there's not a focus. A lot of this is organic. People are listing these products, and whilst there's good sales, there's not that razor focus on getting that organic listings up. 22% have provided sort of detailed, uniform descriptions. Only 22% have kept similar products rooted under their parent ASINs. This is a big issue within this region. So in terms of variations, it's something that kind of slips through the net, and it's a really quick win just by getting that simple merchandising correct. And then 24% were adding clear, concise, uniform bullet points. So it really seems pretty basic stuff that we put on here, but a lot of this is being missed. And in our experience in the brands that we work with here, just by getting the basics right, you can really start to kind of take over those bestseller rankings for brands on Amazon within the region. So I'll start to skip forward and start to get into some more of the information. So product content, quality is patchy. You know, it's a bit of a mixed bag. I think the big call out here is a lot around the imagery. So as I said, a lot of this imagery is not being optimized for the platform. It's just being pulled over. Brands are going live. They're just uploading their basic sort of imagery stack. And there's a lot of work that's been done on that, whether that's enriching them with text, image badges. You know, pretty much every single brand product that we looked at didn't have any of the image badges that we, based on experience, see very high conversions. So lots of improvements there, and video as well. It's just not been adopted here. So quick wins for brands on a content point of view. Look, product titles, here's an example of what it should look like. Again, it's going to be similar in other markets. I think key thing to call out within the UAE, it's an English speaking site basically. So there's no Arabic within the UAE on Amazon. Now, if you go into Saudi Arabia, there is Arabic, and that is preferential to have, especially when we're looking at these product titles and so on, and the copy and content. Product descriptions, again, there's lots of improvements here. It's very, very basic, but just, you know, there can be a lot of improvements made here. Ultimately, customers are going to be looking at the images and largely the product description. Yeah, product variations, I talked about this, so we just got to, you know, keeping it, you know, nicely, cleanly grouped. It really helps the consumer purchase, and just puts the brand in a good light. And there is a lot of work to be done on this within the region. Even Amazon know that. Just because they've got a huge amount of selection coming from international markets, that from a merchandising point of view, it has been missed. Bullet points, here's a good example. Just making sure that the bullet points, you know, talking about the features, advantages, benefits. We'd obviously like to see this also included within the image stack. As I said, making sure that there's badges that relate to these USPs on the product page. Close-up imagery. So there's a few examples of the brands that we included within the benchmarking exercise that had some good examples, but this really, really does help consumers make that purchase. And lifestyle imagery as well. Lifestyle imagery was quite lacking across the board from the benchmarking exercise. But this is a really, really good way to kind of bring products to life. And consumers within this region, I know this, you know, lifestyle imagery works everywhere, but here within this region, there's a real lack of it on marketplaces, more so on retailer sites. And it does really work well here. People do want to kind of have a creative visualization of the products, and it helps with that purchasing cycle. As I said, putting simple text over images, it works really well, works very well here. Mainly consumers are looking at the image stack, they're spending more time on looking at the image stack if it's available, and this is where they're really getting the USPs rather than going down and reading through, you know, a block of text. This is a great place to put it. So video content, as I said, this is being underutilized within this region at the moment. It only launched quite recently. You know, Amazon has only been live within Saudi Arabia for about a year, and within the UAE for about two and a half years. And before that, it was soup.com. So image, you know, video, and lots of the features that are available in Europe and the US are, you know, only really starting to come to light. And this is one of those features. And people just haven't really got on the bandwagon and used it. So a great way for brands to really take advantage and ladder up and help their sales within their categories. Some of the key sort of benchmarks as well, just pulling out of the report. So only 34% had an average review rating of 4 stars. I think reviews here within the UAE is very, very different to Western markets. There's a real, consumers are apprehensive about putting reviews up. They tend to only put them when they're bad. Amazon Vine is not available within the UAE or Saudi Arabia yet. So there's a real challenge on Amazon and other marketplaces and generally in e-commerce to get consumers to write reviews. Travel actually do get that. Consumers are leaving it within the travel sector, but when it comes to e-commerce, it's a bit of a challenge. So I think this is where brands need to be quite creative, using potentially influencers as part of that strategy as well, and kind of just trying to entice people to leave a review, whether it's good or bad, but that ultimately will help improve conversions. And search, as I said, a lot of this around SEO ranking. There's a lot of improvements that can be made just to help from an organic listing point of view. So in terms of the kind of the competition from third-party sellers, so a lot of sellers are opting for cross-border. As I said earlier on, it's a very cross-border market. So brands from the US, UK, across Europe, essentially India, China, are trying to take advantage of a market like the UAE and Saudi Arabia, and obviously international delivery is there. There's quite a large number of these sellers, but they're not very close to the pricing. There's not a lot of strategy that's put in here. So, with the right sort of focus, you can start to win buy box on listings. And obviously, if you can bring that in from an FBA perspective and get that into the market, it's very, very easy to beat these high number of sellers. I think there are a lot of unauthorized sellers. So there's a lot of cross-border trade. There's a lot of grey product. There's a lot of fake product. When I used to work at Amazon it's quite some time ago now, about 8-9 years ago, we had a similar problem with fake, but it was slightly easier to control. It is a little bit out of control within this region. So it's a really, really key reason why brands should have a good focus on this themselves or with a partner, or, and making sure that they have brand registry and everything in place to start to police the market, which is what we try and do. So now I just wanted to touch on the different types of models within the region. So obviously you've got marketplace and within marketplace you've got cross-border and doing that domestically. So in terms of cross-border, it's obviously a lower risk for a brand. So for instance, you may be based in the UK, you can set up an Amazon store, a Noon store in the UAE or Saudi Arabia, and deliver that via Aramex, DHL, whoever you want to choose, and deliver that cross-border. It's lower risk, sorry, there was a couple of questions come up. I might pick them up at the end. I'll just quickly go through this and maybe call those out. Amazon and Noon, very good entry points. I think with cross-border, you are going to have a longer lead time. You are potentially going to lose out on buy box. If you're a completely fresh brand, you're going to have to invest in marketing. Marketing can be a little bit challenging if you haven't got a really solid prime FBA listing, but it's something to consider. There would need to be some level of localization. I think when looking at cross-border, D2C is obviously an option. So if you are a brand in the UK, there's no reason why you can't make that cross-border into the region as well. It obviously, from a cross-border point of view, there is a lower demand and slower sales just because of that lead time and lack of sort of a local presence. In terms of a local setup, some key considerations, you would need local operations within the region. Typically, the UAE is a good starting point within this. Trade license would be required. You can, certain countries use IORs and so on, but you would really want to get a trade license set up. VAT set up. VAT within the UAE is 5%, just for everyone's information, 15% in Saudi Arabia, but VAT setup is required here. Now, if you are going to set up locally, there's going to be shorter lead times, which does drive faster growth. You could look at using a distributor. Distributors pretty much are the go-to within this region. Distributor, a partner that has that local presence that you can leverage and work with as an extension of your team does make sense. This is some of the pros and cons of cross-border trade, right? We've kind of covered this off, so I'll skip past this. So there was a question around what are returns rates like in MENA. So I just called that out because I don't think I have that on there. So typically return rates, they do kind of mirror looking at, say, Europe, if I was going to talk about Amazon. So within each of those different categories, fashion, your returns rates are going to be higher. But again, we look at our Amazon returns rates here and we look at them, say, in the UK, and they are pretty similar within categories. If you are going to be going with cross-border, I think it's really based on the complexity of the products as well. Fashion is going to see very similar returns rates. If you are going with a cross-border strategy, returns rates can be something to be quite nervous about. You don't want to be sending cross-border and getting lots of returns. If it's a low price point product, typically it's better to just destroy it than to actually pay to get those products returned. So just in terms of considerations around a local setup, you may find this useful. It may be something that you're thinking about or maybe not, but there's ultimately an option between a mainland and a free zone. This is specifically within the UAE. Mainland, previously, you would have to give 51% of the company to a local sponsor. As of yesterday, there was an announcement on this that 100% foreign-owned companies should be live in effect from July of this year. So that's quite an interesting thing to kind of look into. There is free zones as well. The benefit of a free zone within the UAE is that you can then, it acts like a bonded warehouse. You can redistribute that product within the GCC and the Middle East and North Africa without having to pay duty within the UAE. And that's actually how we manage our warehouse operations here. Product registration is one to think about within the region. Certain categories is easier than other markets. Some it's slightly harder. So consumables, pharma, topicals, etc., beauty categories, they're all going to need product registration. Some of them is going to be Ministry of Health, and some of them are going to be Dubai municipality. Dubai municipality is about $100 per product and $25 per variation. If these products do fall under medical, those registrations do increase to about, I think it's about $1,000 per product's not 100. So it does go up quite a lot. Time can take around 4 weeks, can take more. It's really going to be around the documentation, and there are banned substances here within, the consumables, food goods, etc. So such as alcohol, pork, and various other ones, but all of that information is available. So just quickly on the marketing side, this, I'm sure you're all aware, right? This is your typical funnel when looking at marketing, and within this region, it pretty much follows the same sort of strategy. You want to get people and you want to build the brand awareness and so on. So I'll start to go on to some specific examples of some brands that we've worked with in the region and just call out the things that we've noticed. So this is a brand called Ginsu that we've worked with here. Fresh into market, we've taken them on, we put them on Amazon. They sell pretty well in the US. We do sell them in Europe as well. And they've got some good content, they've got some nice products and some nice pricing. So we've done a kind of a 360-degree marketing campaign, and to be honest, the ROAS on this was great. It didn't really cost us that much. We engaged influencers. We had a ROI of about 8x across all of the marketing activities that we run on this last year. And I think in a very, very short time, we got the products up into the best sellers. I think it was, I think we now are number 1, number 3, number 7 in terms of knife block sets. And it was really just about getting the basics right in terms of the merchandising and then making sure that we run the right marketing campaigns. A lot of brands within this region are not leveraging a lot of the Amazon marketing features that are available. It only launched a year and a half ago within the UA, about a year ago. So the cost per sort of conversion, I would say, is pretty low. Some categories is a lot higher. As it's very competitive, but the large majority of categories, it's a very, very good opportunity for brands to come in and quickly get their rankings up on the platform within the UAE and Saudi. Again, these are examples of the different sort of ads that can be run. I'm sure you know this from Amazon and other markets. There are limitations within the UAE, so just to call this out, there aren't as many features that are available to sellers in the UK or the US or across Europe as there are in the UAE, but some of these are becoming available as time goes on. Such things as like subscribe and save as a seller is not yet available, but that's happening. Influencers is a really good one. Like lots of people talk about influencers, I think globally. Within this region, you know, peer influence is really, really strong. And, you know, social media is massive here. You know, Instagram, Snapchat more in Saudi Arabia. But yeah, Instagram influencers, we've done a lot of collaborations with micro influencers for brands, and it just works really, really well. It's cost effective, doesn't cost a lot of money. Pretty much everyone in the UAE is an influencer, so there's enough of them around to engage with. But we found that this really works well. And then this is, you know, just some of the lower funnel campaign planning. So this is like Google search ads, right? And what we do within this region is, you know, for brands that don't have any presence in brick and mortar, is that we still leverage Google search, but we drive them into Amazon, and we run these ourselves. It's cost effective, especially for new brands. We drive them into the brand store, and then we can track and tag and kind of understand those consumer shopping habits. Yeah, so grey markets. We touched on this earlier on, but I think this is a really key one. So brands that are coming here, some of them are coming here for growth. Some of them are here with a bit more of a defensive strategy. So in the UAE, parallel import is just not understood within kind of UAE trademark law. So anyone can import any product from Australia, Hong Kong, and sell that product on marketplace. And it's really not controlled. The only way to really control that is to have a commercial agent agreement, which is costly and it's not beneficial to the brand because it's a lifelong commitment. We wouldn't advise any brand to enter that because then you're beholden to that local partner. They are starting to make some shifts here, but ultimately grey is a big problem. Amazon even know that this is a problem. It encourages unauthorized sellers that really just are not growing these brands in the right way. Customer service is very poor, and it really affects overall brands, especially in the consumable category, vitamin supplements. They're getting this grey. It's not good for, you know, in terms of storage and consumers. So a lot of this grey has helped Amazon grow within the market, and this is from Souk previously. But obviously, you know, going forward, they need to move away from that and have a lot more control. And that's really what we've focusing on, and that's kind of our commitment within this region. You know, we work well with brands in, you know, US and Europe, and we have really good control over this, partly because it's slightly easier. But here we've started to kind of shift away, and we've got a very good partnership with Amazon in terms of helping to control this and police it and clean up these marketplaces. And, you know, this is an example of the tool that we use just to keep an eye on it and track this. And then we obviously do compliance testing, reach out and start to action takedowns against these. This is an example of Slendertone UK brand, just where we came on and kind of stabilized the price and have been policing the marketplace for them. And we've obviously seen a very good benefit in terms of overall sales growth, just from this keen focus. And we have a lot of other brands that we're doing this with, just to kind of get that element of control in there. So just then moving on and kind of the finishing piece. So in terms of looking at the kind of the future here, really given a focus to the UAE, as you can see, in Saudi Arabia, just because it represents the immediate opportunity for brands that are looking within this region. I think, you know, what's going to happen within the region going forward, you've got Egypt is most likely going to switch over to Amazon soon. That should happen this year. Noon is already present there and starting to build that up. Another key call out is the UAE so far has just started to do cross-border sales into the smaller GCC countries like Qatar and Bahrain and Kuwait and Oman. and that's from the UAE site. So consumers in those markets can go onto the UAE site and purchase and get that delivered, similar to how Germany, Amazon was delivering to neighboring countries, and since they've started to open up their own smaller Amazons, but that's kind of how they're doing it here within the market. Turkey is another interesting one from an Amazon point of view. Is kind of on the border of MENA in Europe, but they're just about to launch their pan EU FBA fulfillment. So any of you brands involved in pan EU, Turkey does represent a really strong opportunity for later this year. So just to kind of wrap up then in terms of recommendations. So look, if you're looking at this region, it would be good to audit Amazon. Good starting point to understand, is your brand currently present? Are your competitors present, and how are they performing, and is there some real room for opportunity? Looking at sort of the customer data and how those customers are kind of shopping both online and potentially offline within this region, and looking at any opportunities and comparing that to maybe your home market as well. Then really deciding on, what's the role of marketplace within the Middle East. If this is going to be a defensive, a growth play, does this form part of a larger strategy for yourselves? Are you looking at a D2C cross-border? Are you looking at working with a distributor to get physical presence, and really define what that channel strategy is? And then looking at the proposition. I think the key thing is really to make sure that you're clear in terms of what you're going to go ahead with, who you're going to, are you going to do it yourselves? Are you going to be using an agency to help and support a distributor? And then making sure that the proposition is right for those marketplaces and starting to implement. And then, in terms of the model, cross-border, good starting point. I think most brands focus on this and then obviously shift over to kind of a more local strategy. And then, just quickly on pattern. So I think I quickly talked about, ourselves and some of the examples of this, but, pattern, we are an international partner for brands looking at marketplace within the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and the Middle East. We're relatively new, and like Amazon is relatively new in this market, but we've got a very, very good stronghold now and good relationship with Amazon. So a lot of the brands that we're working with are looking for that incremental growth, looking to move into the market. And then some of our brands we actually work with domestically here. So examples would be Adidas. We have a partnership with Reebok, and just helping them to make sure that their brand is represented on these marketplaces in the right, the right way, and leveraging that for growth. So good stuff. So look, thank you very much. I hope some of that was useful. I tried to cover as much as possible around the region, and I think we're just about on time to then go into questions.
Yeah, really, really interesting. Thank you for that, David. And we've actually got quite a few questions. But I want to start off just getting a bit more of a feel for the customer in the area, and whether it's more important to focus on the brand and brand experience, or whether price does come into it. Here in Europe, we always look at the Middle East as, they're the oil-rich countries, that they're really, really rich and well off. Does price matter? Can you pull the price lever with discounts and special offers, or is it all about the brand?
Yeah, 100%. So good question. So the consumer here, perspective, obviously these are oil-rich countries, and that's driven a lot of the kind of the growth in the past. But for these oil-rich countries, the locals are a very small percentage of the country in terms of population. The UAE, it's very small. It's 20-30% is actually locals, and it's made up of expats. So some of the consumer shopping behavior is driven by the expats. But what I would say in terms of the local culture, no matter how wealthy someone is, they want a bargain. So even if you go into the physical stores here, everyone is bargaining, right? So even the very, very wealthy and high disposable incomes would be looking for a bargain. Now, if I look at an example of a site that's doing cross-border from the UK, so My Protein. Good example, the Hut Group. They've got a pretty strong presence within the UAE, and they are hugely discount led, right? It's always, buy two, get one free. And the malls, it's very much a, promotional led. Having said that, premium brands that really establish themselves and are desirable, they don't have to discount. They're kind of the exception. And that's going to be based on, that's something that these consumers really want. It's something that they've seen on social influence and so on. The brand quality is high, they trust it. Those brands are the ones that really truly win, I think, within the region. They tap into those consumers and with high spends. But yeah, I mean, consumers are looking for a bargain as well. That does play a part.
And something else you mentioned was to build the brand present, getting it in local stores. Just really quickly, what are the top local stores in the Middle East? I mean, here it'd be like, well, Debenhams has gone, half the high street's gone, but it'd be like John Lewis or Marks and Spencer. What are the top stores in the area?
Yeah, so to be honest, the way that I'm talking about the GCC now, so the Gulf countries, the stores that are big in the UK are the ones that are big here. It's, there's not many local. There are the Landmark Group, which is a retail conglomerate, which have created their own brand concepts, and they have their own retail stores such as Baby Shop, Splash, Home Centre, but a lot of them are franchisees. So all of the big stores that you've got in the UK, you just talked about Debenhams. Debenhams is also here, and they're still open here. But there's a lot of these kind of franchisees also from the US, right? So you're going to be looking at Macy's is here, then there's Harvey Nichols and so on. So there are a lot of high price point ones, there are a lot of low price point, but yeah, everything that you see pretty much in the UK is very similar here as well.
Fantastic. And then what are consumers' expectations around delivery is an audience question. Is it same day, next day? Are they flexible over speed? Are they worried about sustainable green deliveries?
Good question. So I would say just on the last point, they're not worried about sustainable and green. They may say they are, but I don't think anyone recycles here. So it's a bit of a buzz thing. But it's a really good point because I think consumers here are very, very demanding. So they do want fast delivery. Within the UAE, a lot of I referenced UNAS earlier on. So they offer a 2-hour delivery. They're luxury, they're premium, and they've kind of set the bar quite high in this 2-hour delivery promise. Amazon, you're pretty much looking at same day, next day. Within the UAE, Saudi Arabia, next day. But consumers are willing to wait. This is the really interesting thing. They are willing to wait 10 days because if they can only get the product cross border, they are willing to wait. But as soon as it's local, they really demand a quick delivery, and the increase in sales is vast.
So we've only got a couple of minutes left. So I think some quick fire, almost yes/no answers for the next couple of questions. You've talked about Amazon and Noon, but what about eBay in the MENA area? Is eBay there, or is it just Amazon and Noon?
Nope. Yeah, and eBay is not present.
And you've talked about Amazon, and they're starting to get features like A+ content, etc. But what's the back end like? Will it be familiar to someone that's in the UK or EU?
Yeah, it's very similar. It's just a bit tooled down. So yeah, it's a little bit more basic, but ultimately it's the same interface.
And if I'm selling on my own website, what payment options are expected or preferred? And you mentioned the kind of payment on delivery. Is that still expected from my website, or will they do debit, credit card?
Yeah, so I mean, they are quite demanding in terms of different payment options. Cash on delivery is preferred, but cross-border is just not an option, so it's typically not offered. So within the UAE, I don't think you have to do that. Just prepayment, Apple Pay and so on is beneficial. In Saudi Arabia, cash on delivery is sometimes a bit of a deal breaker for consumers there. There are companies like Aramex, which do offer cash on delivery for cross-border, but you do have to pay a little bit of a premium, which sometimes you can pass on to the consumer. Might be 15 SAR, which is the equivalent of about £3, £4 per delivery, but they are willing to pay that if you wanted to offer cash on delivery.
And then right up against time, you mentioned earlier about social penetration. What's the best way for sellers to start leveraging that? And is it as big as social in China, or is social selling a thing there yet?
Yeah, social selling is a big thing here actually, but it's more for smaller independents. So it's less of a controlled big environment as say China. But having said that, I think Instagram very big here. I think TikTok are now getting into e-commerce in a big way in commerce, and TikTok is huge here as well. So and they are quite early adopters here. So I think social selling is a big thing. I don't think it's a massive share. It's more of an influencing kind of share in terms of sales online here.
And then a few minutes left. So I really wanted to save a little bit of time for this question, which is about, are there any key cultural sensitivities we should be aware about when writing products or product descriptions? And I think I'd like to extend that out to, you also mentioned about imagery and video. Obviously, bare skin is likely to be an issue, but what else should we be worried about, especially when we're looking at those lifestyle images? Are there any differences in lifestyle in the Middle East compared to the UK and Europe, or maybe the US?
Yeah, so it's a good point actually. I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago when we were launching a few of our sites. This was when I was at Al Shire. We were launching, I think it was Licenza and Victoria's Secrets in Saudi Arabia. And actually the feedback is that from a point of view, when it comes to digital content, you're a little bit more relaxed. So in the stores, you definitely can't have any imagery that you would typically see in Victoria's Secret store. So it's just more headshots and so on. But online, it's a little bit more relaxed. When it comes to lifestyle imagery content, when it's online, it is a lot more relaxed, and we don't know necessarily why that is. But from a consumer point of view, it's also widely accepted. The UAE is very Western. Anything that works in the West is fine within the UAE. I would just say with Saudi Arabia, it is about just toning it down, right? So if you are looking at lifestyle imagery, just kind of make it a little bit more reserved, depending on what sort of product you're trying to promote. But ultimately, you're not going to get into trouble. But it's just the consumer would most appreciate a bit more of a reserved representation.
And are there any product sets which are the real key ones? I mean, I know you mentioned kind of fashion and the top four consumer electronics, etc. But are there any real hot things in the area at the moment that if someone's selling that product sets, they should be jumping in straight away?
Yeah, interesting. So in terms of categories, I touched on vitamins and supplements. Mm-hmm. That as a category is very strong. I think that one's seeing huge growth. Like a specific product within that category, like the gummy products. We had one of them in our consumer research study that we run. But that's a big category. Home, as in kitchen, small products. Very strong. Consumer electronics is massive, but it's also it's very competitive, and pretty much everyone's made their play. Actually, automotive is an interesting one. It's growing. Beauty is very strong here. High consumers within beauty, and there's lots of different platforms to take advantage of that as well. So, lots of categories, but those are kind of just ones that come to mind.
And then we've literally got 2 minutes left now, for real. So I just wanted to ask, what are the advantages of working with a company like Pattern, and what do you do for me? What should I look for from a partner that's going to help act as my representative in the Middle East? And when should I be doing it myself?
Yeah, no, perfect. So the way that we operate with brands directly, some local here and some international, and we basically take the strain away, right? So we work in as an extension of their team. We go in with a aligned commercial objective. We want to sell the product at full price. We're not about discounting, and we police that marketplace. We do the registrations. We'll run the marketing. We kind of launch that for the brand, and we just take advantage of it. And we give kind of that solid local experience for the brands that want to, you know, enter into the market and take advantage.
Brilliant. I want to thank you so much for your time and for all of that information, David. And
Sure.
for anyone that wants to find out more, you'll be able to contact David and the team through the Pattern Showcase. So we've got a networking break for lunch coming up. Go to the presenting partner showcases and you'll be able to contact Pattern there and all of the other presenters throughout the week. There's got downloads, they've got videos, and you can actually make contact with real people and have a conversation, video conference if you want, right now. So once again, David, thank you so much for your time this morning. And for everyone else, please do enjoy the rest of the day and come back this afternoon for this afternoon's presentations. So thank you, David, and thank you, Pat.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.